guys, this is Brian with Bokashi.com back in Lawrenceville, Georgia. And today's video is about fall time and Bokashi. Hey guys, I'm back. It's fall time, it's November, Thanksgiving's in a week and a half I think it is. And it's just kind of a dreary fall day. So I have to go clean out my refrigerator. But to clean out my refrigerator, I have to empty some Bokashi buckets. And to empty some Bokashi buckets, I have to clean up my garden. We had a hard frost a couple days ago, and you can see what's left of some of my pepper plants that I've pulled out of the garden. And you can see the tomato plants that have kind of died out there. And I've got just this one little plot here, and I've been pulling out some the pepper plants, and this is where I'm going to bury the Bokashi this year. I pulled out a bunch of these plants, and I just wanted to show you something with the Bokashi composting. Look at the size of the roots on one plant. This is a composter, just one of your little twirly plastic bin composters. It's probably about 30 inches across. You can see off of one pepper plant how big that is. That's my hand, and it just covers the bottom of the root. I mean, it looks pretty shriveled now, but that pepper plant was putting peppers out just until the frost came. But look at the size of the root, guys. Look how far down those roots went. That's pretty incredible for just a small pepper plant in a raised bed garden. Give you a perspective. Look how much of the root mass is there, which tells you how much that plant could actually pull in and put towards a fruit. I started pulling this one up here, and I quit just so I could show you real quick. This is one of the last ones in the pile. Look at the size of the dirt clod. Let's shake all this out of it real quick. One plant, guys. Look at the size of that root structure. That root structure was all basically Bokashi compost for fertilizer. I really used nothing else. That's not bad at all. So that plant actually had plenty to go out and reach for, and put out some wonderful fruit this year. And we'll put this one beside the other one. You can still see some of the fruits that didn't quite make it and the frost got to. Look at the size. And that's just 2 pepper plants. That's 2 out of 6 pepper plants that we put out, guys. And you can see it's incredible. So Bokashi composting, it's awesome. You know, I can't fake it, I can't make it up. Like I said before, it's not a silver bullet, but it's a fine tool to have. And what we're going to do today is put in some 2 buckets of the Bokashi fermented waste. One of them's the famous one from the flood of 2013 here. That thing's been sitting in a bucket since January, and here we are in November. So it's been sitting 11 months unattended. And then I have another one, and of those 2, I'm going to be filling them back up with what all's in the fridge. Okay guys, I went ahead and got the buckets out of the shed. You know the drill by now. You take your area, if you're going to use the burial method instead of the Bokashi soil generator method, you dig yourself a trench. All I did here, the soil was so loose, all I had to do was just scoop it up to the sides. I've got my trench, that's about 8 to 10 inches deep, and I've got my 2 buckets. Bucket on the left is a newer bucket. It's been sitting unattended for about 2 months now. The one on the right here is the one that's been sitting unattended since January this year. So for 11 months, you can see any other process or anything like that, you would have had putrefied, something smelly, greasy looking. Go down in there, and you can see some of the other stuff looks just as good color-wise as when it got put in. That's a bucket that's been sitting for 11 months, guys. And that's the scraps that are underneath. So give me a second. We're going to go ahead and put these 2 buckets in the ground, finish up, and then we're going to run inside and go ahead and fill them back up. Hey guys, I'm back. I went ahead and buried the 2 buckets outside. You've already seen me do that many times before. If you've watched any of my videos, that's old stuff. What I'm going to show you is one of the values of the Bokashi composting system. This time of the year, we're getting around Christmas, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, whatever your holiday of this time of the year might be, and you're going to have a lot of food, and you're going to have a lot of scraps and a lot of things to throw out. But the really cool thing, whether you're young or you're old or whatever, about Bokashi composting is that you have a refrigerator. A lot of times you fill it up with a lot of stuff, and that day comes when you've got to empty it out. And the Bokashi composting system is unique among all the other composting systems in that A, you can go ahead and fill it completely up. You cannot overfill or overfeed one of these systems. And B, it doesn't matter what you put in it. Meats, dairies, seafoods, even liquids. So I'm going to show you what happened at our house. I had to go empty out the 2 buckets in the back, so I had a bucket to actually clean out the fridge. So let me show you what we've got. You come over here, you can see all the stuff that's come out of the kitchen one way or another. You have your breads, you have some meat, old salsa, all kinds of stuff. Liquids, semi-liquids, pasta. If you come over here, you can see that you've got spaghetti sauce, definitely a no-no in regular composting. And here's some chicken soup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we're going to compost meats, dairy, seafoods, liquids, everything in this one bucket right here. So give me just a second and we'll get right to it. In there. Okay guys, all of this stuff would otherwise end up in a landfill. As far as our responsibility to the environment and to everybody else goes, there's a better way than to just throw it in the landfill. If you realize how much of your money goes into garbage, you would be surprised. The number one thing that your government or that your local community pays for with your taxes and everything else is fire, EMS, things like that. The next thing on the list is going to be for trash removal and sanitation. So if you could remove that cost and save yourself that money and save yourself the environment and turn around and actually make yourself a good composting product at the same time, why not do it? So what we're going to do now is compost all of this stuff right here. That's the Bokashi brand. That's the Bokashi brand that you see here. And what you do is you go ahead and, just like I've taught you before, just take a few fingerfuls. The biggest thing when you Bokashi compost, people tend to use too much. They get a handful like this, when in fact all you need is a little bit. We're going to take that little bit and start our bucket. Always start your bucket with just a dusting on the inside. You really don't need any more than that. People tend to put too much in there. What I'm going to do is this. Part of the Bokashi composting system is knowing the order in which you want to put your stuff in. So since I have some liquids, and liquids tend to form at the bottom and stuff like that, I'm going to take what I have, and this is the bread, some old stale bread. This is what the bread rolls looked like when I started. And I'm going to put them in the bottom first. And the reason being, because I'm composting liquids, I'm going to actually use this to absorb the liquid. And that way I don't have to worry about draining my bucket so much. So it's really just a simple matter of taking your scraps, just putting them in there. And we can clean this whole refrigerator out probably in about 5 minutes. Now, since I have that in the bottom, I'm going to start putting my liquid things in next. You can see that was some potatoes and beans. You see the liquid. Any other composting system, that would be a no-no. And all we do, guys, is you literally just start filling your bucket up. As you fill your bucket up, what you're going to do is make a layer about 2 to 3 inches deep. And then you're going to put another layer of Bokashi wheat bran on top. Again, we put the bread in the bottom so that the liquids will be absorbed, and we're managing our liquids. I have a whole nother video on managing our liquids. Let me spread this out a little bit. Now, I've got my 2 or 3 inch layer. I'm going to go ahead and put a little more wheat bran in the bottom, and that's all you have to do, guys, just a dusting. You don't really need much more than that. And I'm going to carry on, and I'm just going to layer my things in there. I had some dry, I have some wet. Now I'm going to go with something that's semi-dry and just kind of lasagna layer it into the bucket. You don't have to be careful. You don't have to do anything special with it. Just keep putting it in there, a layer, and then a layer of the Bokashi brand. Here you have some mac and cheese. This is all stuff that you would not normally, think to throw in a compost pile because of the standard or traditional pile. These are the no-nos, things like that. And if you'll notice earlier in the video here, I went ahead and showed you the roots of one of my plants outside. And that plant was actually grown in what you see here, or something similar to it. These are just the scraps that are coming out of our house, guys. So our garden is basically made up of whatever we had for dinner. That's my next layer in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my masher, and the reason you take a masher or something like this is an anaerobic process. Anaerobic means without oxygen, and since it's without oxygen, by pushing it down, we're excluding the air that's between the layers. What we're also doing is making sure that the Bokashi brand is in firm contact with the food scraps, and since it's in firm contact, then it'll start waking up. It'll start decomposing what we are putting in there. Now this one, guys, is definitely a no-no for any type of composting. Straight liquid. What I'm going to do is just gently put it in there. And then, even though you see the liquid, the bread is going to soak up all the liquid. So that is how we can compost a liquid and still not have any problems. Since I put that liquid in there, I'm going to consider that as a layer. I put a little more Bokashi brand, and I keep going. Melon that didn't get eaten. Some salsa that went sour. Here we go, guys. A whole refrigerator full of stuff. Meat, that is something that's definitely a no-no in any type of composting system. Sauce, actually a gravy. Put another layer. What I do is when I'm composting liquids, I always add just a little bit extra, just because of the fact that it's a liquid. If it's dry material, you need a little bit less. If it's liquid material, you really should use a touch more. A little bit of old yogurt that didn't get eaten. Again, these are all liquids, guys. As long as you manage the moisture, there's no reason why you should not be able to compost these things. A little bit of bran. And I'm going to add in something that's a little drier, which is some old dried out mashed potatoes. So you can see I took several big containers of stuff that would otherwise go in the garbage can and stink up your garbage and eventually stink up your environment, because when it goes to the landfill, all it does is rot. It doesn't get used for any other purpose. And because of the rotting, you have CO2 given off, you have methane, nitrous oxide, you have all kinds of greenhouse gases. Since we are going ahead and composting it, and we're doing it with Bokashi composting, the bacteria, the yeast, and the fungi that are inside this wheat bran here that's actually living on the wheat bran right now, they actually absorb that. They actually eat that and use it as their food source. So instead of going to the environment, the microbes themselves actually consume it, make it organic by building their bodies or taking it into their bodies. So unlike a traditional composting, you don't have all these greenhouse gases. Since this is a cold composting method, you don't lose a lot of the energy like you would to a standard composting method. If you have something that's heating up, that heat takes energy, and that energy is actually the nutrients that you're losing out of your compost pile. Since this is a cold composting method, you can go ahead and save that energy, which means you can save those nutrients that are inside there. What I'm going to do, one last time, I'm going to go ahead and mash it down. Again, we're excluding air. We're making sure that the wheat bran that has the microbes living on it is in firm contact with the food. And in a matter of minutes, these microbes, which were otherwise asleep and dry, are going to wake up. When they wake up, they're going to do what they do best. They're going to consume food. And what is going to happen is, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to wake up. They're going to lower the pH of this. By lowering the pH of this material, you're pickling it or preserving it. Once that pH goes down, you're excluding, out competing, or otherwise killing other pathogens, other types of microbes that are not beneficial or harmful to us. As that happens, the pH goes down, the microbes become active. They're actually consuming this food. Now, a lot of the times the food, once it's completely fermented, will look exactly the same. But structurally, it's not. It's already decomposed, it's broken down. So we have additional enzymes, elements, minerals, vitamins that are either created or released through this process. And just like any other time you do your Bokashi composting, you put your air excluding lid on top. When you buy a bucket from me, you get the cute little cardboard one. But if you don't have one of those, all you want to do is exclude air from the top layer. So just use yourself an old bag. Put it on top, gently push it down, and then you snap your lid on, guys. That's it. We do have an air gap above the layer of food in the top here, but that air gap is separated by this. So that's what you have to do to make sure it stays anaerobic or without oxygen. So there you have it. In about 5 minutes, I took 5 pots, and I took about 20 pounds of food out of the waste stream. I went ahead and Bokashi composted it with no more wheat bran that would be in your hand. And then in about 2 weeks, when this is completely fermented, we'll put it back in the yard, bury it, and then we'll end up going back through the cycle of recycling everything. We grow it, we eat it, and we compost it. So I hope you found this entertaining. I hope you found it enjoyable. This is a great time of the year for Bokashi composting. When the winter time comes, a lot of people think they're done in the garden. And this is a perfect time, because this is the time of the year that you can go ahead and amend your soil. Your soil's tired from the summertime or from the springtime or from whatever crop has just come out. So what we're going to do is feed it organic matter. Not only are we feeding it organic matter, we're feeding it biology. The biology that's in here will go forward and propagate into the soil of your raised beds or your container garden or your field or whatever you tend to grow in. And then what will happen is, since this is a food source and it's already pre-digested, all the other secondary things from the soil will come in. The native bacteria, the native yeasts, fungi, worms, roly-polies. You have a whole hierarchy of consumers and recyclers. So, hope you found it interesting. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've not tried Bokashi composting, come to the website, prokashi.com. Look around, see if it's for you. If you have tried it, get back into it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very clean, very simple, very easy to do. There's no twisting, turning, hauling stuff outside. Once I put the lid on this, I can stick it under my sink, and I can leave it unattended like I did the other bucket for 11 months, and it will not hurt it one bit. Or I can wait the minimum of 2 weeks and then turn it into the garden. It's very flexible, very scalable. So thanks for watching. My name's Brian, and come see me at prokashi.com. Thanks.